But first, breaking news happening right now on 12 News at 6.
President Biden sitting down for his first interview since last week's presidential debate. That conversation just airing on the East Coast. 12 News journalist Bram Resnick joining us in studio along with two political analysts to help break down the big moments from tonight's interview. Bram?
Hey, Rachel, I'm joined by Karl, first vice chair of the Maricopa County Democratic Party and a Biden delegate. He's also a partner in the Gentles Agency. Also with us is Chuck Coughlin, chief executive officer of High Ground, the oldest political consulting firm in the state. Karl, you're a Democrat. Chuck, you're now a registered independent. Both of you started with Republican Senator John McCain. Now, this was an unprecedented interview about a president's cognitive health and ability to do the job. We're going to review 3 clips from the 22-minute ABC interview with President Joe Biden. Let's start with Biden. He was asked about his health by George Stephanopoulos.
Let's start with the debate. You and your team have said you had a bad night, but your friend Nancy Pelosi actually framed the question that I think is on the minds of millions of Americans. Was this a bad episode or the sign of a more serious condition?
It was a bad episode. No indication of any serious condition. I was exhausted. I didn't listen to my instincts in terms of preparing, and I had a bad night.
You know, you say you were exhausted, and I know you've said that before as well, but you came, and you did have a tough month, but you came home from Europe about 11 or 12 days before the debate, spent 6 days in Camp David. Why wasn't that enough rest time, enough recovery time?
Because I was sick. I was feeling terrible. Matter of fact, the docs with me, I asked if they did a COVID test because they were trying to figure out what was wrong. They did a test to see whether or not I had some infection, a virus. I didn't. They just had a really bad cold.
And did you ever watch the debate afterwards?
I don't think I did, no.
That may have been the shakiest part of the interview, the president filling in some details about his health, including a COVID scare, and he doesn't think he watched the debate. Chuck, your takeaways there.
Well, George pressed him hard, and later in the interview, he pressed him even harder. And clearly the president doesn't want to talk about that. He doesn't want to talk about his cognitive. He did a great job trying to get on offense, but I think it was a tough night again. If you're the president trying to get on offense on your message.
Did that ease any concerns about the president's health and what folks saw in that debate?
Yeah, I think I saw a president that is ready to take on the fight and continue to fight and win in November. And so I think he did what he needed to, which was to demonstrate that he has the capacity to take this fight and win.
Next up, George Stephanopoulos pressed the president repeatedly about his cognitive abilities. This is unprecedented for any president to sit through this. Take a listen to one of the questions and answers.
Have you had a full neurological and cognitive evaluation?
I get a full neurological test every day with me. And I've had a full physical. I had, I've been at Walter Reed for my physicals. Yes. The answer is
I know your doctor said he consulted with a neurologist. I guess I'm asking a slightly different question. Have you had the specific cognitive tests, and have you had a neurologist, a specialist, do an examination?
No one said I had to. No one said. They said I'm good.
Would you be willing to undergo an independent medical evaluation that included neurological and cognitive tests and release the results to the American people?
Look, I have a cognitive test every single day.
I have a cognitive test every single day. Should he take a cognitive test, Karl?
Well, I think he is having a cognitive test every single day. He's dealing with some very difficult issues every single day across the world, some really hot issues. And look, for a person that's 81 years old, he's doing better than half his age in some cases, and he's done a really good job in delivering what he said he would do in office. And I think that's where he needs to focus on, and people need to focus on that and what he's been able to deliver for Arizona and American people. Now, is he now in a position that he has to prove himself again? I think he is, because he has a lot more that he has to do to gain some more confidence in American people.
Chuck, was it say that we're at the point where a president is being asked about his cognitive health?
When he's 81 years old, you have a 78-year-old. They're both, 80% of the country doesn't want either of them as their nominee. And so it is de rigueur. It's what's happened to our political system today.
And I think as we were watching, you pointed out that took up about half of the interview time.
It was 8 minutes of very intense questioning because George kept trying to get him back to talking about it. And he clearly does not want to let any of that dialogue in the room. He's good about his record. He took everything and played it back. You know, the old political, answer the question you want to answer, not the one that's asked. And he's obviously a pro at that.
Is there any reason you think he should take a cognitive test?
Look, like I said, I think he's taking a cognitive test every single day. It really is. And I think that tells more about his cognitive abilities than a test or a 90-minute debate about whether or not he's fit to run this country and win an election.
And I do need to point out, for most of that debate, when he was talking about his record, he appeared to be quite coherent and cohesive, holding it together.
Yeah, I think he passed that test, and I think Stephanopoulos really did a really good job of trying to get a conversation about his health. And I think the president really showed his ability to manage that kind of question, and he was able to demonstrate that he's up to the test.
Now, toward the end of the interview, George Stephanopoulos pressed Joe Biden on the political question, bringing a bunch of poll numbers, putting them all in front of him, went him over and over. This is the bottom line for most Democrats, right? Can he win? Listen to this exchange here and Joe Biden's answer at the end.
If you are told reliably from your allies, from your friends and supporters in the Democratic Party, in the House and the Senate, that they're concerned you're going to lose the House and the Senate if you stay in, what will you do?
I'm not going to answer that question. It's not going to happen.
And if you stay in and Trump is elected and everything you're warning about comes to pass, how will you feel in January?
I feel as long as I gave it my all and I did the goodest job as I know I can do. That's what this is about.
Chuck, how do you think Democrats are going to digest the last answer there? What would he do? How would Joe Biden react if President Trump wins the election and Joe Biden is defeated?
Yeah, that to me was, it's about me. It's Joe, it's tough guy Joe Scranton, Joe from Scranton, that is never count me out, I'm in. And what it really spoke to me about Bram was the intensity of the bubble around him. These conversations are not happening in front of him. His staff and people are keeping this conversation out of the room. And I don't think he really understands the anxiety that's going on. I think that question caught him a little off guard, but he answered it truthfully, I think. He's going to do his best, and I'm going to serve the country because I believe I'm the best candidate.
Karl, you're a Democrat. You want your candidate to win. Was that answer good enough for you?
Well, I think you have to stay focused on winning. You have to keep your eye on the ball, okay? And that's really important here, especially when the opposition is mounting a major campaign to take you off of your campaign strategy. And we've both been in the middle of campaigns, half our adult lives, and that is what has to happen. You have to stay on your game, your message, and overcome the opposition's message, which is what he's trying to do now with this health conversation.
So the question becomes, can he get to that message?
Right.
Can he get to that 27 lies? Can he get to the convictions? Can he get to the character issues while this issue is playing in front of the American people? I don't think he can.
At the end of this interview, yes or no, answer please. At the end of this interview, did you conclude that there's any way Joe Biden will get out of this race?
There is no way he's getting out of this race.
If it's left to Joe Biden, Joe and Joe Biden have made up their minds. He's running for president.
All right. In fairness now, I want to read this paragraph by Peter Baker of the New York Times. He's the chief White House correspondent. It summarizes the state of the two rivals for the presidency. Quote, one party has a candidate who is really old and showing it. The other has a candidate who is a convicted felon, adjudicated sexual abuser, business fraudster, and self-described aspiring dictator for a day, and also really old. One party wants to replace its candidate. The other does not. And on that note, we will end it. Karl Gentles, Chuck Coughlin, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Brandon.
Thank you.